Hi. So as I mentioned in my email yesterday, I was going to make a video just chatting with you about exam two, since normally we would do this after class when you got them back. I'm trying to get a student statistic print. It's not a printout, but it runs a little report, and it's taking longer than I thought. Sorry, but so I'll give you the overall. So the average score was an 80, which I believe I told you in the email, and we did have someone get 100%, which is great. 80 is a good average. I'm pleased with that. It looks like the average time total was an hour and 25 minutes. Kind of right around where we would be if we were in the classroom, given that you would have 75 minutes in the classroom as it was. So one thing that I wanted to talk about, particularly in terms of time, just because a few of you would write in your answer, oh, I don't have enough time. I did not go back and individually look at people to see how often you left the page. So just in general, some things to think about. There's a couple of ways to look at time. For some of you, I know this might have been one of your very first, if not your first, online exams. And so you may have been a little unsure of yourself as to how it was going to work, where your clock is, all of that kind of stuff that comes with once you've taken some courses online or just taken exams in general online, to see where things are and get comfortable with them. So there is some of that, right? That's kind of new territory for some of you. One thing that I've heard from students, but I don't know if it's a setting thing, and if you know otherwise, please send me an email and I can share it with class, is that the countdown clock always remains at the top. And so I believe what I've been told is it's, first of all, it's tiny. And second of all, when you scroll, you might lose it. And I don't know this personally, whether it's a web page thing, a system thing, or if it's just a Canvas thing. So one recommendation I would have is use your cell phone and set some alarms on it. And so with some other students in other online classes, I've said, okay, if let's say we'll use an hour and 15 minutes, set it for 45 minutes, set it for an hour, and then maybe set it to, in 5-minute increments after that, if that's something that you want to do. So if you set your alarm, it kind of serves the purposes what I try to do in the classroom, right? Which is write the time on the board. And so you can kind of see how it's running down, and I'll put 15 minutes left, right? You may or may not remember that from the first exam, but I did. And so that might be helpful. And the way to make up for that, maybe to set an alarm on your phone so that it goes off. And it just kind of, unfortunately, might stop your train of thought on that particular question, but it makes you realize oh, okay, here's where I am. Here's how many questions I have left. Let's space it out that way. Or maybe even just doing it halfway done and then the last 5 minutes. Regardless, it may just help you kind of figure out where you are within your time frame. The second thing with time in general, and I can't tell unless you actually wrote a little note that was I was out of time versus you just didn't know the answer, right? I don't know that because I don't see you turn it in. But keep in mind complete thoughts, not necessarily complete sentences. I didn't feel like anyone that I graded looked like they put complete sentences in, and then that's why they didn't finish. But if you were running into a time issue or you felt rushed, remember on your next one, I don't need you to restate the question. I don't need you to write a complete sentence. I just need a complete answer. So feel free to use things, and I don't know if you can actually use bullet points, but a slash and then your answer. And then, if it just says list, that's really all you're required to do. So one of the questions was list 4 ways we talked about creating marine pollution, I think. It was along that line. It was a 4-point question, okay? But it said list 4. And so you just needed to list 4. A lot of you gave me examples, which is fine. But if it doesn't ask for examples, you don't necessarily need them, right? That's not getting you more points. It doesn't get you a 5 out of 4, okay? So if you felt rushed for time, when you're looking at the question, just make sure your answer is a complete thought, and make sure, yes, you are answering the complete question. So if there's 3 parts, it's 1, 2, 3, but also you don't have to give me extra, okay, when you're doing it. So just make sure you're kind of looking at that. Again, if you felt rushed for time, these are some strategies to think about, like, oh, am I actually putting more time into it than I need to, where I could use, and really it could be like 5 seconds, right? But could I use that 5 seconds somewhere else? All right. The third thing is, and like I said, I haven't gone into each, it finally finished download, so I'm just going to open it really quickly. Oh, this is a jumble. Okay, so that's not super helpful, so I may not address that at all right now. So I didn't look at how many times people left the page, but don't leave the page. So what that means is come in more prepared, right? There is definitely I don't even know what I want to call it. We'll say an inclination to think that now it's an open book test. It's going to be a lot easier because I can look up all my answers. The problem is looking up answers takes time, right? And so if you need to look up answers for a lot of the questions, that's potentially more, right, than that 10 seconds or that 5 seconds that I was talking about you could get back before by writing a complete thought rather than a complete sentence. And that eats up time over the exam. And for some of you, assuming, and I can only assume that you went in order, I could tell if you didn't get to some of the last few questions, I was like, I wonder if I went into their left pages and looked how frequently they left the page. Now, when I'm grading in Canvas, I see your name at the top once, and then as I start to go through, your name disappears from an easy view. So I'm kind of grading them blind. They're in alphabetical order when I go through them, but that doesn't necessarily help me know exactly who is whose. But also, with my goal of getting them turned around to you, I didn't look at everybody's, right, to see how much they left the page. Meaning, like, if it appeared that you didn't finish, and again, I don't know, you may just not have known the answer. But if you appear to have not finished, I did not specifically look. I can go back and do that now if that's something we want to look at. But that was not part of my analysis when I was grading your exams, was to look. I graded them, and then I look at the question statistics to make sure those look great across the board as we go through. In one of my other exams, the answer key was wrong, so like 97% of the people missed it, and I was like, oh, that's an issue on my end, and sure enough, I went and looked, and I was like, yep, that was me. So that's the kind of statistics I look at on your exam. I don't look at the individual statistics unless you want me to, and you say like, hey, I didn't do as well as I wanted to, let's look at it. So with that being said, and I had like a handful of you after the first exam come talk to me, if exam 2 didn't go well, and you expected it to go really well, we should set up some kind of appointment, either through Zoom or Collaborative Ultra, just to kind of walk through things, and I will take like a deep dive into your exam and say like, oh, these are the lectures, so it looks like maybe this lecture didn't go as well for you. There's all sorts of things that we can look at to try to figure out what's going on before we take that last exam. So if that's something you want to do, just reach out to me through email, and then we'll get things set up. But like I said, I did not do that kind of deep dive into everyone's exam right off the bat. Okay. It looked like communication was good and understanding was good about how many questions from each grouping to answer. So that was great, because I was a little nervous that if people weren't watching the videos or they weren't reading during the exam, that you would kind of miss that, like, ignore the points, it's a Canvas workaround. But all of you seemed to get that really well, and we didn't have any kind of issues there, which was great. I didn't get any emails questioning like, why am I answering a question that's worth 0 points? So that will remain the same as we go forward into exam 3, and I will make sure that I word it identically as to how I did on exam 2. Use the color coordination for these are the 2 point, these are the 3 point, these are the 4 point questions, and tell you very clearly, like at the top of each question, like you need to answer X out of X, because that seemed to work really well. So I will keep that up. But that was also good listening and following directions on your part, because that's important. Okay. Other than that, so you will see, and I'm going to figure out the details on this weekend, an extra credit opportunity. It will be, we don't have surveys like we used to in D2L, so I probably will end up putting in discussions, but I'll send an email outlining all of this. For you to start thinking about which way of presentation for that independent project you're choosing. And I mentioned this in the email. So remember, if you go down to it's next week. It says independent project. You can look at scholarly articles, you can make a creative project, and then you can make teaching slides. And it all kind of depends where you see yourself potentially being in the future career-wise, or what's interesting to you. And I haven't done it yet, but I'll do it on either tomorrow or Saturday. I'll put it up on Sunday. All of the creative projects that we've had in the past, I made sure the last time I was in my office that I had pictures of everything on my cell phone so that I could put them into slideshows. So I'll do that for you guys. So you can see, because some people really like during finals or leading up to finals, just being able to do something, especially if you're like creatively talented, like you can draw, which I cannot. But if you can draw, like it might be fun to be able to do a project that involves drawing. Now, there's still writing, regardless of which one you choose, but it might be nice for some of you to do creative things. Once I get kind of an estimate on how many of each type of project we're going to get, I am planning on coming up with some arrangement that if you have a physical project that you want to give me through your creative project, so like in the past, and I didn't get to keep this one, but it was really cool. Someone made a giant shark fin that was like 4 feet tall out of, I think it was chicken wire underneath and then plastic bags all through it. You'll see it in the picture. It's really cool. But her work wanted it, so she took it back. I was a little bummed. But if you have something physical you want to hand me, I will be reaching out to those people doing independent projects and seeing if we can figure out like a socially acceptable drop-off procedure, almost like a curbside pickup drop-off, something or other, where like I'll be at a certain place, and it might be multiple places depending on where people live, where like I'm sitting somewhere, you're going to like walk it up to like a point that's far away from me, and then you'll walk away, and then I'll come and retrieve it and take it with me. So we'll figure that out. If you have no desire to do any kind of independent project, don't even worry about the logistics. If you want to do an independent project, I will be reaching out to that group specifically and saying like, okay, hey, what neighborhoods do you guys like? What part of the town do you live in? So that we can set up kind of, you know, if it needs to be like 2 different drop points or 3 different drop points, we can get that all figured out. Okay, so that is specific for those people. But kind of going back to before I got into too much detail, I'm going to give you this extra credit opportunity where I'm going to add points back to exam 2 by just telling me what you're going to pick. Are you going to do the paper that looks at the scholarly articles? Are you going to do the slides? Are you going to do the creative project? And so all you have to do is tell me your topic and then which one you're going to do to get that extra credit. And so that'll go up this weekend. Again, I will email you with that. But it's good for you. It gives you an extra credit opportunity. It gives me another way to find out kind of where we are and who I need to coordinate with for those creative projects. All right. So that's coming right now. As I said in the email yesterday, you have a participation card that's open until Saturday. Your safe drinking water assignment is due this week as well. Keep turning in late work. So if you haven't watched Racing Extinction yet, just take the time to do that and get that filled out and get that to me. Yeah, so that's kind of where we are. I feel like, and I could be totally wrong, so if I am totally wrong, please email me, that the slide presentations with the voice over PowerPoint are being communicated clearly, or you're able to watch them on YouTube, that type of thing. I'm hoping that this is one of your easier classes that transitioned because A, we did so much stuff through Canvas already, and then B, because of the voice over PowerPoint's kind of not a new way of lecturing, not trying to let it be a little more flexible for you guys so that if you now have stuff going on and people at home, you didn't have to meet with me every day during normal class for collaborative ultra, that type of thing. So I'm hoping that's the case. I'm hoping you feel the workload stayed the same. There was, I guess, some kind of campus-wide survey, and I have no idea who got it, if everybody got it, how many people actually answered it, that said they felt the workload went up. I'm hoping you don't feel that way because it shouldn't have. I guess if you never came to class, your workload went up if you're now watching the presentations. But I hope for the most part you feel like for this class at least it's been pretty consistent with minor changes in terms of your time investment. But if you have feedback, please let me know, especially as you're looking across your other classes. If you feel like someone's doing something really well in terms of how Canvas is organized or how they're presenting material, let me know, because I'm definitely open to making changes, especially if they're small, that are not going to be like monumental. But it's good to know on my end if you're finding something that works really well or something that's like really horrible that you feel like is going on in our class too. That's good. Like any kind of feedback is good in this kind of time period where we're transitioning, and we transitioned very quickly. Because just because it makes sense to me and feels clear to me does not mean it's communicating it that way as well. All right. I am going to look forward to some emails. So please let me know if the exam did not go the way that you wanted to based on your preparation. If you took the exam and you're like, I just didn't study enough coming into it, because I kind of had this like, oh, it's online, I have my notes, it'll be fast. That's one thing. But if you really felt like you prepared and you came in and you weren't spending a lot of time looking up answers and you still feel like your score didn't go well, then certainly let me know and let's go through it and chat about it. And usually, it takes like 15 minutes at the most to kind of sit down and talk about it, because I'll do a lot of work up front. I will deep dive through your exam and try to pull things out so that I have a paper ready to talk to you about, and I'll just ask you some questions about how you prepared, that type of thing. Okay. Otherwise, just keep turning in work, keep utilizing the grace period, and then participation card is closing Saturday, open today, and then look for this weekend the slideshow of the independent projects, of the creative ones that I've gotten, and then the extra credit questions. So start thinking about what topic and maybe the way you want to present it, and all of that information is in next week's folder for you to look at. And there'll be another video that I post about the independent project, just as I did last semester with them, which seemed to be helpful because people could keep going back if they had questions about how that should look logistically when they turn it in. All right, keep up the good work. We haven't had anyone come visit me in Collaborative Ultra yet in this class, but I'm always there Thursdays from 11 to noon or through email.